Welcome, this is Trinity Gaia Oracle. In this series, we will be taking a journey through each card in the Divine Masculine Healing Oracle deck by Christabel Jessica, and the artwork is by Cecilia G.F. Today, we will be taking a deeper look into Buddha. Accepting what has been does not condone the happenings of the past, but allows for moving on. Release rigid mindsets and move forward into a future set on your terms. Gautama Siddhartha, the Buddha, was a Nepalese prince who became the Enlightened One. Born in 563 before Common Era to parents Queen Maya and King Suddhodana, Gautama became the founding master and teacher of Buddhism. His mother had a prophetic dream that she would become pregnant with a son who would be either a king or a religious leader. When she passed away 7 days after birthing Gautama, King Suddhodana attempted to keep him from turning to religion. He surrounded Gautama with all pleasures within the walls of the palace, sheltered from human suffering. Upon leaving the palace for the first time at age 29, Gautama was so distraught after seeing the villagers suffering, he went on a quest, renounced pleasure, and fasted for 49 days. Seeking refuge from the knowledge that human suffering existed, it took him time to arrive at a state of acceptance regarding the realities of the world. Gautama eventually found enlightenment by meditating under a fig tree, now named the Bodhi tree. Buddha's message. If a friend experienced a heart-wrenching tragedy, you probably wouldn't tell them, it is what it is, accept it, and let go. That would pile on invalidation on top of the agony and suffering consuming them. Offer yourself the same consideration. Acceptance occurs several steps into a healing voyage. It comes at the hand of processing. Premature acceptance can hinder vital processes that need to happen before reaching this stage. Toxic positivity and spiritual bypassing are both displays of premature acceptance. This keeps you disillusioned, opting for denial and repression of emotion rather than truly moving through hardship. You don't have to get over it to find acceptance. Validation of your experiences and emotions works wonders compared to trying to let go. Statements such as "it is what it is" or "XYZ happened, but it's okay" do not move you toward acceptance. They keep you far from it. This mentality skirts around the issue, looking over it, under it, or sideways. The admission of pain is what elevates you out of this mentality. It happened. It sucked. It was painful. What now? Accepts that it occurred and allows for genuine moving on. Accepting is not condoning. Instead, it is putting a stop to fighting tooth and nail to change the unchangeable. It requires honesty about the fact that suffering has occurred. Not accepting means suffering indeterminably after the initial suffering. Something may be unchangeable. However, there are aspects you can change within your ability. That may be your perspective on the matter, how you move forward, or initiating paradigm shifts for future change. Take the learning, growth, and motivations and bust through previously unopened doors. It is comfortable to stay in disillusionment, pretending that bad things don't exist. It is easier to pretend that things are different to how they are. Prolonging the inevitable will not help. Pretending your current situation is not as bad as it is extends your suffering. Accepting and experiencing the pain of reality now is tenfold better than continuing to deny the truth. Accept what has happened to allow what will be to enter. Now we will be moving into the reading of the Buddha Oracle card. I do want to let you know that there is a storm passing over, so you may hear some lightning or some thunder here and there. And I believe that may be a synchronicity. The chaos is finding a means to release, to let go. And through that, there is an elevation of life and nurturing of the earth and mental, energetic elevation of states of being with the lightning and the thunder. through the release of negative ions into the atmosphere. Buddha is probably one of the most relatable in some essences to me personally. So this will be a little more, I may have more knowledge to it than to some of the other oracle cards, because Buddhism has been something that I have found a very healing way of approaching, thinking, and relating to my own mind and how I interpret my reality and how I would like to change that. It's been a very healing experience to learn about this way of relating to your internal world. One of the things that I respect the most about Buddha is, even on his deathbed, some of his very last words were, "Don't worship me, don't deify me. Every person is capable of this if they choose to be. Question everything. Question everything. If someone says, this is how it is, well, that may be how it is for them, but is that how it is for you? Can you own that authentically as your truth?" And learning about his life, he apparently had a wife and a child as well. That was kind of a surprise to me, as well as all the ways in which he felt that removing that pleasure from his experience would bring him closer to godliness. He was, at different times, but in particular, he was at a spot where not too long before he actually sat beneath the Bodhi tree, where he denied him the pleasure of the physical, which was pretty common at that time, a very common belief, that would bring you closer to a godlike state, closer to the divine. It's pretty close to death. It's pretty close to death. But there was a gal who, I think she was like a farmer's wife or something like that. She found him and she started to nurture him slowly. Mainly just like, here's some very basic food. We're going to overwhelm your body. It was implied that it was to a similar extent where he was basically starving himself to death. He'd also done some self-harming techniques as well to try to really just bring himself closer to that. But after he got to a point where he could really reach that state of enlightenment and sit beneath that tree and hold himself up, he looked at everything that he experienced in his life, from the pleasures that he was born into and really shielded from all the suffering, to when he began to discover how much suffering really was out in the world, when he was able to, kind of get somebody to take him out of the palace and he could see on different occasions, like what it was to be old and frail and close to expiring, what it was to suffer from different angles right outside the palace walls. So from being that individual before he knew, to who he was while he was discovering it, to what he learned when he denied himself to the extent of near death, the pleasures of the body. What did he learn? He put it all together. He put it all together. And in this space, from having both of those extremes in his life, he was able to connect to that intelligence, that source. If you want to call it, he connected to the Akashic records, and he was able to know a lot more than what would be explained in one human life. He was able to tap into that reservoir of knowledge throughout time. However you want to relate to what that being is, he was able to connect with what that was for him in that moment. And he realized that he was suffering throughout all of it, but in different ways. So he developed with this intelligence a means of co-creating Buddhism, knowing that he was the channel, knowing that others could discover this themselves, that they could own it authentically themselves through their own experience. Buddhism at its core, its very fundamental, is to keep calmly knowing change, yes, but it's also how to truly relieve suffering, which begins in your perception of what you're experiencing. And letting go of holding on to suffering is probably the hardest thing, like that keep calmly knowing change. We don't like change. Change means we have to adapt, and we know how to handle where we are. And it only prolongs the inevitable. It's not lost on me that it just started raining either. The letting go of what you have known that is suffering, to make space for the adaptation, allows you to transition out of that suffering. It's not necessarily to transition into new suffering, but into alleviating it. To keep calmly knowing change, knowing that your inner peace, knowing the truth of who you are, knowing that whatever it is that you're experiencing, there's a saying that I grew up with, which was, this too shall pass. Or, it's hard to heal from something while you're experiencing it. When you are no longer in the thick of whatever has been causing you suffering, it can stay with you and linger with you if you are not willing to calmly know that the state that you have been experiencing has changed. If it has changed, then you can heal. You can accept at that time that it is changing, that you get to begin healing, and be compassionate with yourself, to sit with yourself. Turn off all the electronics around you. Go somewhere out in nature, away from cell phones, smart watches, computers, and sit with your mind. Yes, you may think or feel things that are connected that are unpleasant. Observe those connections. Observe how they interact, and then begin to allow change to occur. If you don't like what you're thinking and how it's making you feel, let yourself know that. Say to yourself, I don't want to have these thoughts anymore. I downvote these thoughts. And our biology, through neuroplasticity, our brain will adapt. We can recreate how we think. We can change what our subconscious mind, that's what you're doing when you sit in silence with yourself. You're becoming aware of the majority of the thoughts that you have in your day that do influence every decision you make, that changes your experience. So when you sit with yourself and you have a thought that connects to an emotion, observe it. You may be aware that it's moving through you, but as you make that statement to yourself, I don't want to have this thought anymore. I'm allowing myself to let this go, to let it become something else, something that is more of a positive experience. So this particular thought, I don't want to have this thought anymore. Take this off of my thought queue. And when you do this on a regular basis, you will find that that thought no longer occurs. And the emotion that was triggered by that thought is not triggered anymore because the thought's not there. And yes, you can have emotions that trigger thoughts. And it goes both ways. But in doing this, you are creating change in the majority of the thoughts that you have throughout your day that you're not consciously focused on because you're not meditating. You're not sitting with yourself all day. And you'll find, just like with exercise, when you're looking to strengthen a muscle, that the more that you do this, the easier it will be. And you may find yourself aware of these very same things when you're not sitting in silence, looking into you and understanding yourself, making space to know what's going on inside of you. You may find that you're having this same level of awareness when you're checking out at the grocery store, when you're shopping, when you're waiting in line, when you're doing something repetitive at work that doesn't require a whole lot of brain power. Maybe you're filing or you're stapling things, whatever it may be. Compassion begins within you. A lot of cultures and just really other societies, other groups of people outside of the one that you're familiar with, that you've lived, that you really know for sure, like this is what it's like to be from where you're from. There are many other cultures that really value having compassion shown for others around you. And that is a beautiful, wonderful thing. The emphasis of why this is coming through is if you cannot offer yourself that same loving compassion, your cup is not overflowing. If you can sit with yourself in this space and tend to that inner garden as though those thoughts that cause you to feel unpleasant things or just really kind of negative, they're like weeds in a garden, and you have to continually weed the garden. In reality, if you have a vegetable garden, if you have a vegetable garden or a fruit garden or any kind of garden, there's going to be weeds that you're going to need to pull out. You're going to need to do something to manage that. And that is what sitting in silence and really listening to what's going on inside of yourself is. It's what thoughts have cropped up that are negative, that I can be like, you know what, no, I'm going to downvote that. I'm going to let that energy be given to something positive. That space in my thought queue be taken by a positive thought versus a negative. So taking that time to do that for yourself will allow that same peace to overflow onto others when you are showing compassion and doing community work, or you're volunteering, or whatever it may be. You'll be coming from a space of, I love myself. I have inner peace. I accept when I need to allow myself to heal. I accept when I'm in a state of suffering. And that there will be a process that I will need to show compassion by being patient and gentle with myself. You'll bring that essence into wherever you go. And that will be something that will be felt by those that you're there to help, those that you're there to serve. And you will be modeling that. You'll be modeling that. It will be something that, in my own life, I have experienced people responding to, and they don't have words for it, and they want to understand it. What they don't necessarily realize is it's really not about you. It's about their perception and what it means to them about themselves when they perceive you. That it's not a coincidence when someone does encounter you in this state. That you are a contradiction, and they want to understand because it's an opportunity that they have been given in that moment. Their higher self and your higher self got together and they planned this on the other side. And they're like, yes, this is an opportunity for me to question, for me to start healing, for me to know that there is a different way because someone is living in a different way. And I want to feel how I perceive them feeling, and I want to know how to get there. And sometimes literally telling them that it's not about you as an individual. It's really about what they're perceiving of themselves when they interact or see you in that state, that is what they're looking for. It's not you that's the answer. Know thyself. It's amazing how across so many different cultures and traditions that is a consistent theme, that to look within is to find the answers. To look within is to feel connected. To look within is to understand what is going on outside of you in a completely different way. Ultimately, it is to relieve suffering through compassion shown to self and to others. If you don't have compassion for yourself, it's a real challenge to authentically have that compassion for others. It's similar to, I don't have enough, but I'm giving you half of what I have, and now I have to go without, right? There's going to be some feelings there that are not necessarily positive, and they're going to be known. Whether they're voiced or not, it's going to be something that's instinctively picked up on. But if you have an overflowing cup to give the excess, may completely overflow that person's cup if they decide to hold on to it, if they decide to not dump it out. It's a very different level of presence. The abundance of that inner state is the abundance that we're all actually searching for. We all desire to be happy. And that is bringing yourself to a spot where your happiness, your ability to heal, your ability to be at peace, your ability to experience joy is not dependent upon anyone outside of you. You're not looking for them to say, and now you get to be happy. And now you get to be kind of happy. And now you get to be miserable. But now you get to be happy. Having that external center of control for your internal experience, that is human suffering. And one of many ways that is human suffering. And a lot of us, we're very familiar with this because it's part of being a child. You're completely dependent upon your parent to provide for you. As we grow and our societies, they don't necessarily allow that shift to happen. They don't encourage it. We don't have traditions. We have chaos, or, in some situations, depending where you're at, you have adversity that others just simply can't grasp, whether it's through a lack of awareness or a lack of experience of anything on that scale. When you have an internal center in that peace, knowing yourself, being connected to something bigger than yourself, outside of human words. We don't have language for this connection. But when you have that, where your internal state determines your level of happiness and peace and joy and contentment, that you can adapt that center within you. Whatever's going on outside of you, you determine how you choose to see it. You determine how you relate to it. Whatever it is outside of you does not. The divine within me honors the divine within you. Namaste.